Welcome back to Keeping It Normal with Emily. You know what's so funny? When I film that intro, obviously I don't have music playing, so I just dance by myself in my basement. It's very fun. So today is a fun episode. We're on episode 4. You guys are amazing, by the way. I love you. I love your support. You have been nothing but complimentive. That's not a word. You've been complimenting me a lot, and I don't know how to take it. I love you guys. My friend Alyssa is joining me today. She is obviously, have you noticed I've started with friends with my guest? It's because I am practicing my interviewing skills. Okay. And so I'm doing it with people that I know how to converse with and know I can talk to back and forth well, so that when I then jump to a professional interview, I might be better at it. But Alyssa is my friend. We've been friends. No, we weren't friends in high school, but we met in high school, became friends later. We are like mom friends. We have a bunch of kids together. She was a dental hygienist for a little bit. Then she started her own kind of media company business. She did wedding videos in the media world. And now she's transitioning back to being a stay-at-home mom. She's got 3 kids that are 4 and 3 and almost 2. So she really got full-fledged right into motherhood really quickly. And she is going to talk about a little bit, some tips from a dental hygienist about your kids' dental hygiene, which is awesome. And then we're going to just dive right into motherhood and that transition into being a stay-at-home mom, and how it's okay if motherhood is not the only thing that fulfills you, and how it's important to know what you want and find yourself and all of that. And so it's a really fun conversation. We've already had it because I wanted to film. I thought I filmed this intro already and talked for like 10 minutes and then realized I never hit record. So I've already had the podcast. I've already done the interview with her, and it went really well. And she had some really powerful advice about a couple things that I was just like, oh, whoa, mind blown. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. And yeah, let's get Alyssa in here. All right, everybody, welcome to the podcast, my friend Alyssa. How are you?
Hello, I am very good. How are you?
I'm good. Are you so excited? Are you nervous?
No, I'm not nervous because I feel like I'm constantly talking to a camera, like all day, every day. So I almost feel like this is just a fancy FaceTime with you.
It's a fancy FaceTime. So why don't you, I'd love for you to like officially introduce yourself, like your name and your age and like what you're doing in life right now, so people know what's going on.
So my name is Alyssa Malabanca. I am 29 years old. I'll be 30 this May. And I don't know, I'm kind of a mix of everything. I started off professionally as a dental hygienist, figured out pretty quickly that wasn't for me. I'm kind of like the person that I jump around a little bit until I figure out what I'm passionate about. So after being a dental hygienist, I started a family, and I kind of just fell back into photography because I had it as a hobby for a really long time. And then that turned into filmmaking, and here I am today. I film anything from, I used to do a lot of weddings. We do commercial work, educational videos, TikToks, social media stuff. I'm actually working on a couple projects right now for myself, and hopefully getting my own YouTube page running up at some point. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about, because you were a dental hygienist. Now we have a bunch of kids, and I feel like it's not like what I would love some tips and tricks and like what you should have to take care of your kids' teeth, because I feel like that's not talked about anywhere. It's just kind of like brush the kids' teeth for 2 minutes.
Yeah. No. So I guess I would start with, it depends on how old your kid is, but as soon as that first tooth pops out, you want to basically like clean it with like a wet cloth. I know they have like super tiny toothbrushes. They've got those little silicone things that you can put on your finger. That helps a lot. Even before they pop that first tooth, it's also important to make sure that you brush their tongue, kind of get them used to it, like let them play with it a little bit. That way, when they have all 20 baby teeth, they're already used to that. And then, you know, we say we want your baby to come in once they have that first tooth. And I know that seems pretty dang early, but it's really important because we're looking at more than just the tooth. We're looking at their structure and how they function. So it goes way beyond just teeth. So I know I kind of threw a lot in there.
Well, yeah, because that's not talked about a lot. Like, hey, people are usually shocked when I've said that. I've said that before because you've told me that before. And when
Yeah.
I say that to people, they're like, whoa, really? I'm like, yeah, they say like once that first tooth pops, you should get them in there. And I think part of
Yep.
it too, it helps them get used to the whole process and all of that too, which is good.
And another tip I have just off the top of my head is, I remember I would have pediatric patients come in and parents automatically walk through the door and they'd be like, don't be scared. It's
Mm,
okay. Like
yeah.
that's kind of, already teaching them that there's something to be scared of by saying don't be scared. You almost want to make it seem like this magical place where they're going to brush your teeth with funny
Right.
toothbrushes and you'll get a little prize at the end. And so yeah, for any parents out there, if you're going to be bringing your kid in for the first time, just kind of make it a fun experience and avoid
Yeah.
any of those negative words, because you don't want them to be like, oh, well, why should I be scared? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then I feel like it happens and kids get cavities and there's so much, does genetics play a role when it comes to that?
It can.
Yeah.
It can.
Yeah. And best advice I can give is that if that happens, just like go to a pediatric dentist and they'll make it as painless as possible and get it fixed and go from there. So I want to talk about, you and I met in high school, but we weren't friends in high school.
Yeah.
We weren't
Yeah.
enemies or anything. I painted that like
No.
that's not ominous. You were younger than me. You're a bit younger than me, barely, but we weren't really in the same circles. We just kind of knew of each other, but then we
Yeah.
reconnected. How old were we?
I remember seeing you in band,
Yes.
and that was like the extent of
Yeah.
how I knew
Yeah.
you.
We
Oh, no,
were,
no. We did drama club
oh, we
together.
did drama club together. Yeah. We were in drama club.
Yes.
We were in band. Can you tell how cool we were in high school? But we put on a
I thought you
play
were.
together years later and reconnected and
Yep.
formed kind of a friend group, which then was really cool. And I think really lucky that friend group all kind of went through a life path at a similar time.
Yeah.
So like we
Yeah.
got married and we started having babies kind of all at the same time. So you married your high school sweetheart.
I
Who
did. Yes.
I sat next to in band. How long did you date before you got married?
So we dated for 6 years, and we had a very traditional relationship,
You did.
like old-fashioned
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And he ended up proposing so we started dating in 2010. He proposed in 2016,
Yeah.
and then we got married that following year.
Yeah.
So since 2017, we've had 3 kids, and we're, we always joke around about how many kids we want, because people are like, man, you're having these kids pretty fast.
Yeah.
Like they're back to back to back.
Yeah.
And I always joke around about how fertile I am. But no, I mean, we really do. We love kids. We want a big family. So it's something that we've always known since before we even got married. We were
Yeah.
pretty much on the same page.
And she's not kidding. She had babies back to back to back. So what are the ages of your kids right now?
Oh gosh. Oh man, I wish we had done this like a few weeks ago. That would have been cool, because they used to be 3, 2, 1. Now
Yeah.
they're 4, 3, and 1.5. So the
So
older two
almost
are, yeah, almost 2. So the
So-
older two are 11 months apart. They're the same age
Yeah.
for like 3 weeks together. And then the younger two are 15 months apart. So that's still pretty close.
Oh yeah. No, you have 3 toddlers running around essentially. And so I want to talk a little bit, because in my eyes, maybe you disagree, but let me know. In my eyes, you have a pretty advanced support system.
Oh yeah. I don't think that I could have done this as efficiently as it is now. I mean, it's still chaotic, very, very chaotic.
Right.
But I don't think that I would be in this good of a mental headspace if it wasn't for, my parents taking the kids whenever we need them to.
Well, that was going to be my question, was that part of your factor when thinking, we want to have this really big family, in your mind, was it like, okay, this is doable because we have such an expansive support system?
See, that's the thing. It's hard to say
Right.
because like
Right.
I would love to give you a straightforward answer, but that
Right.
life is not like that. So like I had said before, Michael and I agreed on 4 kids.
Right.
Um, um, I don't know if I said the exact number, but we said we wanted a big family. We had decided on 4 to 5 kids.
Right.
We're almost there.
Yeah.
And um, we, you know, we were pretty determined to get there without my family because, like I said, at the time
Right.
we weren't talking to them at all. But now having this perspective of having them in our lives and having them be so active is it. I don't know. It's a blessing. I don't know how people do it without them.
Right. So it wasn't necessarily like helping in the deciding factor. It probably would have helped happen regardless, but it's a lot easier or a lot more manageable because you have all that
Yeah.
support. Yeah.
I mean, we've all heard the phrase, it takes a village to
Yeah.
raise a child.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And,
Mhm.
you
Well,
know,
and I've
we all
always,
have this mother's guilt.
yeah. And I've always said to it, like, I came to the realization of hearing that phrase that I always used to think that meant like they, like for the baby's sake, like the baby. But I always, now I see it as like the parents are more taken care of because you have the ability
Yeah.
to go and fulfill passions or go on date nights or do whatever you need to do, get that break if you just need it, you know, and therefore you get to be the best version of yourself for your kids.
And, you know, I actually didn't think of it exactly that way until you just said it. That makes a lot of sense because, you know, I think my kids would be just fine if it was
Oh
just
yeah.
us. I mean, I'd be
Yeah.
going nuts if I had absolutely no support.
Right.
But they get a better version of me because we have
Yeah.
this community,
Right.
and I get a better version of me. You know,
Yeah.
some days I have that mother's guilt where I'm like, I really should stay home with my kids all the time. Like they need me. I need to be
Yeah.
there for them. It's all happening so fast. But then I'm like, hold on a second. Every woman I know, including my mother,
Hmm.
had something that they loved.
Yeah.
Um, or even like a job, you know, just something for them to
Yeah.
have like alone time, something just for them.
Well, and you, that's a good segue into you've gone from like working full time to being really involved in your work. And then now you're kind of more a stay-at-home mom. So what happened there? Why was there a shift of that for you?
After I left dental hygiene, 3 years into having my license, I went into photography and filmmaking thinking, okay, this is something I could do on the weekends.
Right.
So I can stay home with my only child at the time. And then, you know, do my own thing on the weekends. And that very quickly I realized, okay, I'm not built for this. It's
Right.
very isolating.
Hmm.
I need something to do at
Yeah.
least every other day.
Yeah.
Um, so it all happened really, really fast. So like within 2 months of my oldest being born, I was already pregnant with my second. And then, you know, COVID had happened, I
Hmm.
think just 3 weeks after she was born.
Wow.
So because of COVID and the nature of my business at the
Hmm.
time, we were already booked out for 2.5 years.
Wow.
And COVID had pushed back, like it just kept pushing that like that end goalpost or whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it further, because my plan was to, okay, let's finish these weddings because we were having our second child. Let's finish these weddings, finish these projects, and then I'll try stay at home mom again. I'll try being a stay at home mom again.
Right.
But because of the chaos of everything, it just kept going further away. And eventually I ended up with, I figured out I had breast implant illness. And
Yeah.
I know I wanted to talk about this in later on, but this kind of ties into it. I ended up figuring out I had breast implant illness, and I had scheduled to get them taken out
Right.
immediately. I scheduled for my explant surgery, and 3 weeks before that, we filmed a wedding,
Yeah.
and I ended up getting COVID. This was at the end of 2020.
Oh, yeah.
And I was sick. And like,
Yeah.
I mean, sick. I wrote a will and letters to my kids.
Yeah.
So I ended up coming out of that after 2 weeks. And so my explant was scheduled to be the week after. And I just had this gut feeling. I'm like, something else is going to happen. There's going to be something that's going to stop me from getting the surgery.
Yeah.
I just know it. And lo and behold, I tested positive for pregnancy.
Yes. I remember the text. I
Oh,
remember the text you sent me. I'm like, you are not going to believe this.
I was so ready to die. I was like, you know what? Just
Yes.
take me at this point.
Yeah.
It was too much. I was isolated. I was working like crazy. I had Irish twins and then COVID and then pregnant.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but so obviously the explant didn't happen. But then right after that, I ended up like that day I called the therapist. I just Googled a therapist and I'm like, you know, I'd gone through therapy before kind of here and there. It wasn't anything consistent. And this time I'm like, all right, I need one because I cannot handle this on my own.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting put on anti-anxiety medications, which saved my life.
Yeah.
So I went through that pregnancy, had the baby. I was still working. I actually did a wedding the day before I went into labor
Oh my gosh.
with my third. And then, so I'm finally getting to the point here. So during this year of me being pregnant, this was my busiest year. 2021 was absolutely insane because I had almost every single wedding from 2020 rescheduled into 2021, filling in the gaps of what I had already booked before COVID. So I had my third son, or my third baby, and 3 weeks after, it was literally weddings and events and photo shoots back to back to back until 2 days before my explant in November. So from June to November, I was working nonstop.
Yeah.
So when I say it happened, like COVID hit and then all that happened so quick, I have no idea what happened like that entire time.
Yeah.
2022, I feel like was just like healing for me. I had to take a step back. I had to let go of social media and like this, put aside what I viewed, like my value was so attached to the work that I was doing because there was just so much of it. I didn't even have time to really enjoy my kids. And it's like, I set myself up this way, but then COVID happened and it just blew up. And that right there, that moment was when I broke and I had to question, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What is happening? I don't recognize myself. I'm making 6 figures and my family's very well off right now, but where am I? And what are my kids going to remember me as? I did a lot of reflection, a lot of talking to people, a lot of just sitting and feeling the feelings that I was numbing for so long.
Yeah.
So, you know, I had to redefine what I thought was happiness and success. And it led me to where I am today, where now I'm making probably a quarter of what I made before. I'm with my kids 5 days a week until my husband gets home. And then I do my thing after he gets home.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're still in that adjustment period.
Yeah.
But I can tell you right now,
that's a big shift to go from owning your own business and working all of those hours and going go, go, go to then going right into stay-at-home momhood. Like that's a big shift you have to go through.
Yeah, it is. And, but you know, in my gut, because we all have that gut feeling.
Yeah.
I really feel like this is how it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm still working on getting used to being at home and having to really separate work life from being with the kids. Like, okay, I fold laundry, I put toys away, I hang out with the kids when I'm with the kids. When I'm downstairs, this is work time. I don't think about laundry, folding diapers, whatever it is, because then if I start leaking things into like their unscheduled times, that's when things are going to start going haywire.
So has
Um,
that, having that kind of like schedule, that has kind of helped you balance everything?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And do you still struggle with that isolation and that stuff that kind of comes along with stay-at-home motherhood, or is the work you get to do at the end of the day help you with that?
So I still go crazy.
Yeah.
Every single day that I'm with my kids. It's
Yeah.
impossible to not go crazy with 3 toddlers.
Yeah.
Like, God bless kindergarten teachers, because holy cow, this
Yeah.
is a lot of energy. But you know what? That doesn't mean I don't love my kids and that I don't want to be with
Yeah.
them.
I
I
think,
just, I
yeah.
sometimes need to walk outside.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's such a, so much is put on moms to enjoy motherhood, and that if you don't, you're a bad mom. If you
Yeah,
voice that this was hard or you're struggling with something, because I don't think anyone would blink twice if a dad in society was like, "Oh yeah, I could never stay home. I gotta get off to work. Like kids would drive me crazy." They would probably laugh and go like, "Uh-huh, yeah." But then if a mom says that, they're like, "Oh, you wouldn't want to be home with your babies all day?" It's like that
yeah.
kind of, it's put a lot on us to like, well, you better enjoy every second, and it's just not realistic.
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be ups and downs
Yeah.
to being a stay-at-home mom, and it's the same for if you're working.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and you know, whatever the criteria is today in society for what measures you to be a good mom. Okay, there's always going to be something that someone's going to complain about. And like
Yeah.
you've helped me a lot with that. Even before you blew up on TikTok, like I remember like texting you about yeah, like since I was pregnant with my first, I would text you about like, is this normal? Like, is this
Yeah.
a thing? And
Yeah.
oh yeah, you've always validated my feelings. And I'm like, dude, I
Yeah.
feel like I'm going crazy because I feel
Yeah.
like
Well,
I'm supposed to not complain.
I feel like it's very important to do that and to be able to vent to your other mom friends or anyone really, and just come back with someone being like, "Oh yeah, I went through the same thing." And it just makes you feel like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay. I'm not doing so bad." Because yeah, you can feel very, it could be very isolating. It could be very like lonely, and you don't want to, have it thrown back in your face or something with someone saying like, "Oh, well, you should just be enjoying these days." And I think there's nothing wrong with admitting that there's more struggle than you thought there were going to be, or maybe a certain phase is a really big struggle for you. I don't think that's inherently a
Yeah.
bad thing.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's just there's so much pressure put on women.
There
You
is.
gotta work. You gotta work like you don't have a family, and you gotta have a family like you don't work. It's impossible.
And I feel like it's just it's very put on once you're a mother, like that should be what you are. And I feel like for not, and I don't know where I'll ask you, but like motherhood does not necessarily fulfill everyone alone. Like I feel like there's so many powerhouse women like doing so many things and getting fulfilled by that, and not just motherhood. And I feel like that is something that should, like, that's not a bad thing either. So I'll ask you, does motherhood alone fulfill you as you, Alyssa, as a person?
No, motherhood alone does not fulfill me.
Yeah.
But I figured out that being a successful entrepreneur, someone who is very good at what they do and is able to provide for their family financially,
Yeah.
didn't fulfill me either.
Yeah.
So
Ooh, yes.
I think
Hmm.
that for me personally, and some women are very work oriented, and if
Yeah.
that's something that fulfills them more than being at home with their children,
Yeah.
that's that. Everybody's so different. Everyone has different circumstances. Everyone has different
100%.
support systems, mental health. For me, especially after having my kids so close together during
Yeah.
a pandemic and experiencing what I did with my health and going through such a big business boom, it really gave me that perspective. Like, okay, what do I really want in my life? What do
Yeah.
I want my kids to remember me as?
Right.
If I die today, like I know it
Mm.
sounds cliche, but if I die today,
Right.
what are people going to say about me? Not that I should care, but it's more like, what legacy am I leaving?
Yeah. No,
Oh,
I think all of us
she
think of that.
worked like a workhorse. Yeah. So, it's the more pictures that I take of my kids, I'm realizing, holy crap, they're like, it's happening
Yeah.
fast,
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
And it freaks me out because I see now, my mother-in-law is very, like, she loves her son. And, she comes over, she does the birthday cake, she does the balloons. She's like,
Yeah.
at first I was like, man, like he's got a mom who's like attached to him. But then now I'm like, oh my gosh, like I get it. Cause
Yeah.
I'm going to be that mom.
Yeah.
when my son is 29 and
Yeah.
has his own family, I'm going to be sitting on the couch crying
Yeah.
happy tears. Cause like he's going to be this like fully grown human being that I created,
No.
but I can't snuggle him like I did when he was
I
3.
know. I know. That's so it's so
Oh,
complex. There's so many emotions. There really are.
oh,
It's so I said in a previous episode that I thought that motherhood is the purest form or the rawest form of vulnerability that I've ever experienced.
yeah.
And that it's a literal piece of your heart or pieces walking outside of your body. And not only do you have to watch it walk outside of your body, but you have to encourage it to leave.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to cry.
It's tough, man. It's so hard. And
I remember you saying that when you had your oldest, like,
yeah.
because I was pregnant, like, not
Mhm.
long after you gave birth.
Yeah.
And, like, you would tell me that. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I finally
Yeah.
had him, and I was like, oh, God, put him back.
Too much. It's too much. And then it's that's why it's so hard because like I'm a stay-at-home mom. I've now kind of delved into a social media career of some sort. I don't know. But so that question of it's just that weird feeling of like I want to be home all the time with them. But they drive me crazy every day and I struggle with parts of it, but at the same time like I don't want to be it's so complicated. It's so complex.
I thought about this today because I was with my mom.
Mm.
I used to fight a lot with my mom when I was a teenager because that's a natural way of life between
Oh
mother
yeah.
and daughter. And today we were just laughing. She was singing like Backstreet Boys, and I was just looking at her. I'm like, I love her.
Yeah.
I love this woman.
Yeah.
She's done so much for me, and I finally understand the sacrifices.
Yeah.
And I know, now as an adult looking at her, I never once looked back. Like as a child, I never once looked at her and said, "Oh, she's bloated today,"
Yeah.
or she's, she's got an attitude today. It was always that that's my mom.
Yeah.
As a little kid, that's my mom and I love her. And
Yeah.
then teenage would happen. But,
Right. You come back.
I
They come back.
love her, but
Yeah.
I can't be with her every single day. You can't, that's just
Yeah.
how it is. Like naturally, you're going to drive someone crazy by being attached to them at the hip.
Right. Anyone. There's going to be a limit.
So it's like it's almost the same with kids. I mean, like, yes, you created these humans and like you need to guide them in life, but they also need to like
Yeah.
have like the social skills to be with other children, other people, to have those experiences, because you're not meant to be,
Right.
I mean, besides your partner, you're not meant to be attached at the hip like
But
that.
even then, you go and do your own things.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no. Like
it is. It's true when you're that close all day, all the time, something's gonna blow up at some point. Just happens. Well, that's
oh,
so. Let's delve into that a little bit because you have a husband and you had a bunch of babies close together, so you have 3 young kids. That's a lot on a marriage. A lot. So,
mm-hmm.
what do you have systems in place? Like, what do you do to make sure that you guys are still solid at the end of the day?
When we had our first, we went straight into trying to figure out a routine, as every
Yeah.
new parent couple does.
Right.
And pretty quickly, 9 months went by. And one day my parents randomly came over and they said, how about you guys go eat some dinner somewhere? And me and him looked at each other. We're like, nah, we're good. Because we didn't want to leave our baby. Like we still, and it was our only child. That's like your golden child until the next one comes.
Right.
So we ended up going to get some chicken and it was awkward.
Wow.
Awkward. We had nothing to talk about. I remember looking at him. We were sitting at the bar next to each other and I'm like, how could this possibly be? I feel like I don't know him.
Yeah.
And we pretty much didn't talk that entire time. And then we went home and I asked him, I was like, are we okay?
Yeah.
And oh gosh. I was like, are we okay? He goes, I think so. I'm like,
yeah.
Was it weird today? He's like, a little. And miraculously, somehow within that week, I had listened to a podcast from two of my favorite photographers, Amy and Jordan. And they talked about date nights because they had just had their first child. And they discussed how important it was for them because they were working so closely together in their photography business. So they were at home together, working together, running this business together, and they had this child. And they talked about how important it was to go on weekly date nights.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh, we don't need that.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, oh, I was thinking of that night that we went on that date 9 months after our first kid. And like, we didn't know each other. So since then, every single week, since my son was nine months old, if we miss a week, we do something together at home, you know, because the main person that comes and watches our kids for date nights is his mother.
Yeah.
So she's been a huge help. She's been our go-to for date nights every single week.
Yeah.
And we'll just go somewhere local. Or like one time we just like popped a bottle of champagne in the van and watched Avatar.
Oh.
So it's so important, even when you don't feel like it, to just go away. And then also have the rules of we're not allowed to talk about the kids. We're not allowed to talk about bills. We can only talk about us, our marriage, like things that we found that were fun, because it defeats the whole purpose of date night if you're just going to go out and talk about how are we going to pay the mortgage this month.
Right. Or like to only talk about the kids. Because that's so easy to do. That's such a good tip. I love that. I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you guys really should. I recommend it to everybody.
That was one of my goals this year, was more date nights. Cause it's so easy, you guys, especially when your kids are that young, because they need you for everything. And it's an intense time of just, they need you for everything. They need you to eat and to go to sleep and to wipe their butt. I mean, they need you for everything. And so it's so easy to get really wrapped into just taking care of these little beings and start to neglect taking care of yourself, taking care of your relationship. And so I do think that's so important if you're able to, even if it's like what you said, just setting aside an hour at home when the kids are in bed or whatever, for time that it's just you and your partner. But I love that tip about setting boundaries about what you're allowed to talk about. That's really
I didn't know that'd be such a good tip.
So
I'm glad I said it.
So I'm curious, did you struggle at all? Because obviously what I show a lot of my house on social media, and I used to be, before I had 2 kids and pandemic and all of that, I was like a really put together person in house.
Weren't we all?
And so did you struggle? Well, you have 3 young kids, 4, 3, almost 2. Is your house aesthetic and put together and clean all the time?
You want the real answer or the aesthetic answer?
I want the real answer.
So, no, my house is a mess all the time.
Thank
all
you.
The time.
Of course it
all
is.
the time.
Yes.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. If you scroll through my social media, obviously the pictures are curated, because that's just like, it's a highlight reel of everybody's lives.
Right.
If you go to my stories, that's a different story.
Yeah.
You'll see the laundry, the garbage, I don't move stuff when it comes to my stories because I'm talking to my people, and I'm like, this is what real life is. I remember talking to you about like just how insane it was to try and keep up with the house.
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'm doing this right because I'm putting way too much pressure on myself. But I will say my house does have an aesthetic. It's just not pristine all the time. So you walk in, you'll see like the nice big pictures. I'm a photographer, you know, like everything's laid out real nice. I love like color palettes and stuff. That's me. Right. But I'm not going to hide the fact that there's toys everywhere and a banana peel under the table and sticky syrup on like it's literally impossible to try and follow little kids around and clean up everything that they're doing.
It would be all you do in my experience. I've done it before a couple times where I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a clean as I go person. And I'm like, what? This is all I'm doing and nothing for what? To what avail? Like they just keep making messes. Now, did you struggle with that though?
Struggle with like going from a clean house to just chaos? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because I had put so much pressure on myself to be this mom who had it all together. People always comment on how like, oh my gosh, you do so much and you have it all together. How do you do that? And it's like, that kind of became my identity. And I let that seep so deeply into my brain that when I failed at keeping up with two things that physically cannot be kept up with at the same time, I was like the worst person in the world. I had failed. I failed myself and my family. And, you know, growing up, my mom was very big on chores and you're not allowed to leave the house until everything is clean. So, you know, in my brain, I was like, okay, I don't deserve to enjoy things until my laundry is nicely put away. Like I'm the person that folds my socks and underwear. If I were to show you, if I were to turn this camera around right now, you would not know that because there's like crap everywhere. But like, that's just the person I am because that's how I was raised. But, you know, now as an adult, when I talk to my mom and she comes in the house and the first thing I always say is, I'm so sorry about the mess.
And what was there something that helped you get over that? Or was it just like you were thrust into the chaos and so you just embraced it?
I know the viewers don't know this, but it was you.
Oh,
it was you. You're like the first person I text when I go through. Cause like I'll, you know, for those of you watching, I really, really struggle with people just coming over and me not like, I quick clean. I do this thing where I just grab everything, put it in a basket. Because I'm like embarrassed, like, oh, don't let them know that my kids play. So, but then like you would come over with the kids and you're like, don't clean. Don't pick up a single toy. And I'm like sitting there like, okay, I guess I won't. So the more that happened, I was like, all right, I'm getting used to this. You know, my other friends would come over and like, they didn't give a crap. Like, and eventually, like slowly, the more I would like talk to you about it and the more that my friends would come over and they didn't say anything about it. I felt more comfortable. Like, okay, it's all in my head. You know, I still get that sometimes where I'm like, I gotta clean real quick. And then I'm like, I'll only clean if it doesn't stress me out.
I just try to keep it, you know, at a functional level of like, you know, we got clean clothes, we got clean dishes, we're good. Because there's going to be toys and there's going to be laundry and there just is. Because the kids, my husband had the kids stay for like an hour and like I got so much cleaning done in just that hour. I was like, well, dang. Like when my kids are in school, all of them full time, or like when they're teenagers and like out of the house, like it probably will be cleaner because it's just going to be less chaos. So, I mean,
and that's another thing too, is like, you know, we all kind of long for that, like nice house that's super organized, very like pleasing to the eye, like guests are wowed when they come in. But I feel like when I reach that point in my life, my house is going to be nice and put together. But my kids are not going to be my little kids anymore.
Yeah.
And so many people, I try to be a wisdom seeker
Yeah.
and a wisdom implementer.
Yeah.
So when I talk to I'm very, very lucky to have all my grandparents. When I talk to, my older friends and my grandparents and their friends, they all say the same thing when it comes to kids. I wish I would have cleaned less. I wish that I would have
Everybody
spent more
says it.
time with them. Everyone says it. So it's
Everyone.
like, why are we putting so much pressure on young mothers to have it all together?
Yeah.
And
pressure,
then you have these older people.
Pressure for every decision you make for your child, when at the end of the day, I've never found it to matter. Pressure to breastfeed or versus formula feed, pressure to make your own baby food or buy purees, pressure to homeschool there's so much to every decision you do, when at the end of the day, when we're all adult people, no one talks about any of that stuff. I'm never like, hey, Alyssa, were you breastfed or bottle fed?
Were you breastfed?
When did you potty train? How old were you?
I was just going to say that. Yeah, because that's how I determine who my friends are going to be.
Yeah, or like you're about to marry someone, like, okay, so what, did you eat organic growing up? Did you wet the bed past the age of 3? I need to know. It's not relevant, but everyone puts so much pressure and judgment on it.
Yeah.
And it's really hard.
At the end of the day, I really think, I think it's very important to take care of, your health. Do what you can. If you have the resources, absolutely take care of your family the best way you possibly can.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it really comes down to, do your kids trust you? Do they love you? Are you their safe or their comfort?
Yeah.
And when my kids are older, I want them to say, my mom was there for me.
Yep.
My mom never put my value in, what I accomplished at a certain age.
Right.
She just loved me for who I was and supported me through my journey, because life happens.
Yeah. And I feel like that's so huge. That's so huge to a kid and to a person, to an adult. Yeah, that's a big deal that you accepted them and loved them for who they were. And that's really what it boils down to, I think.
Yeah, because they'll remember that. I mean,
yeah,
there are days where I absolutely lose my mind and I'll raise my voice and I'll stomp around. But then, I do come back and I apologize. I talk to them about it. Mama shouldn't do that.
Right.
Mama should not do that at all.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'll try to do better.
Yep.
And I'm just trying to do the best I can. Sorry. I'm losing my mind here.
That's all we can do, though. That's all we can do as best we can. Well, I want to end with a question. I like to ask people a question, like maybe advice you could give. Maybe, so what would, coming from someone who worked really, you were all in full-time working, to now someone who jumped into being a stay-at-home mom, what advice would you give for someone that's going to do that, that's about to embark on, they've worked full-time, they've done the corporate thing or the business thing, whatever they've done, and now they're going to be a full-time stay-at-home parent? What advice would you give for that transition?
There's not one good piece of advice I have exactly for being a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
I'm more passionate about you figuring out who you are and letting that kind of lead your life.
Yeah. I think that's awesome advice. I think that's true. I think that helps you not lose yourself in it too.
Yeah. Because no matter what you do, if you don't know who you are, no matter what career you're doing, what age you are, how much money you have, you're not going to be happy.
Right.
So figure out who you are, really just listen to your gut and be honest, be totally upfront and raw with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you left that on a good high note and with lots of good advice. And thank you for being on my podcast. You're the best ever.
Thank you. We're just going to continue this conversation in a FaceTime call.
Yeah. Because that's all this was a fancy FaceTime call. But I'm going to link all of Alyssa's socials, all of the good stuff where you can find her. She speaks a lot on her social media about much more in depth about her breast plant. There you go.
Yeah,
Breast
my breast plants.
implant, illness, motherhood, her business, all of the good things. So go give her a follow. And Alyssa, I love you and thank you for being
I
here.
love you.
And I will talk
Good
to you
night.
guys later. Bye.